All right. I think we are live. And let's see. So we did a test yesterday. It worked. It better work today, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe if I pin this, it can actually be a pinned post and people can see it. All right, there we go. So now we are actually live, and we should get some audience very shortly. And welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Milana. It's great to be here. I'm excited about this conversation.
My very first guest on a Facebook Live. I'm excited. We have a super interesting topic that I've been really craving to talk about ever since I started my new business. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. And it's also a great opportunity to bring simplicity into this conversation, because this is your chance to step away from what you're doing right now in your business and gain some perspective, because very often this is how insights come to us and help us get better results, right? So hopefully, yeah.
I was just saying, absolutely, yeah. Simplicity, and by getting that step away, 30,000-foot view is always a good thing to take a moment and pause.
Exactly, because I think that we are working in our business, and we forget to step away and can kind of gain perspective, see things from the big picture view, and I think that that's going to really help people see how businesses are really growing right now. And I'm getting an echo actually, so I'm not sure why that is happening. Am I echoing on your end there? Hi, Jane.
You sound good.
If anybody can kind of confirm for us, any echoes, guys, or we're good quality-wise? That would be awesome. Jane or anybody else who is watching us, that would be great. So yeah, I think that there was just like a momentary lapse in audio quality. Hopefully this won't happen again, but welcome again. And before we get started, the topic is evolution of coaching information products. Thank you, May. May says Milana has perfect sound. Yay. So hopefully Chris does as well. I wanted to say that welcome to Simplicity Entrepreneurship community, Chris, and all the listeners and viewers. We just hit 800 members today, literally minutes. And we started this. I started this group exactly 3 weeks ago. So I'm excited that we are growing this fast. People are really resonating with the idea of simplicity. Whatever it means to you, you are in a perfect place to be here with us today. And I'm going to introduce Chris, and then we're going to dive in. So Chris is a serial entrepreneur. At least that's the impression I'm getting, because you have a lot of things that you're interested in. You believe that entrepreneurship and conscious parenting and healthy living can heal and change the world. So I'm really connecting to that today. And Chris is the founder of an e-learning platform called LifterLMS. In fact, let me see if I can put that on the screen, because it is a challenging name to say. Let's see if it works.
That worked.
That worked? Hopefully.
Yeah, I see it.
All right, good. I see it as well. Awesome. LifterLMS, and I'm actually going to type in, for more information. That's where you can learn more about Chris, and I'm actually putting a link, which is an e-learning platform for people to create and to sell courses, which is one of the topics we're talking about today, which is very, very exciting. And what I love about Chris, when we first met, is that you said that you studied anthropology. I don't know if that was your college major or how that came to your perspective, but anthropology to me means that you understand how people work as groups, as society, and how that translates into what's happening online as well. With social media, so many things have changed. And they change the buying patterns and how people build credibility and trust online. So I'm fascinated by that, and I can't wait to dig in. into this conversation. So I wanted to start, well, first of all, thank you, Chris, for being here.
It's really great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and hanging out with other fellow entrepreneurs is always a fun thing to do. So thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So what I wanted to say first is let's travel back in time for just a moment. I wanted to ask you, Chris, what was the very first product that you purchased online, and what product that you sold online first? And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to share what I've done. So my very first product that I purchased online was Can eVoice Make Your Knowledge Sell? 750-page ebook, which I am, thank you, May. Chris has perfect sound. Yay, no echoes. It's just in my head. I must be echoing to myself. So Make Your Knowledge Sell is a product about how to create your ebooks, your information products. And so 750 pages I printed out with a printer at work, I'm embarrassed to say. And I went home with a huge binder so I could read and highlight and devour that information. And as a result, I ended up creating my first product. It was an ebook on how to design your website in 10 days. I don't know why I chose 10 days, but that's kind of how I thought people would be attracted to. And of course, because I really was looking for that feel of having a perfect, tangible business, what I've done is I took my PDF file of an ebook and I put it on a CD. I don't know if you can see. That's my first product. And it says, how to open a PDF file. And it was 2001. And it felt like, that's what people would buy, $29, right? I wanted to feel like I was creating something very tangible. And that completely changed. Nobody cares if it's a CD or if it's a PDF file, and there's so much information that is free out there. So let me ask you this question, Chris. What was the very first product that you purchased online? And then maybe you can follow up with the very first product that you created.
The very first product I purchased online was actually Eben Pagan's Wake Up Productive course.
Okay.
And that had a huge impact on me, and that's when I realized how powerful this online format was. And I think we have a very similar path and akin in flight, in the sense that my first free product that I launched was how to build a website in 2 days. But it was like a free training series, and I used it to get leads when I first started freelancing online. I was a self-taught WordPress person who could build websites, and I created a course. It's just 6 videos that were on YouTube. I also put them on a page on the website to get leads, but also teach people how to build websites. And my first paid product that I sold was a gardening course that I created with my wife.
Topic.
Yes. Yeah, it was. So I got into the whole online course world in a niche called permaculture and organic gardening. I have a side project with my wife, so I'm also just like the type of customer that our software LifterLMS serves. I'm an avid course creator myself.
So this is really interesting that you said that. I'm a kind of customer that my product serves. LifterLMS is your product. Let's put it on the screen again for people who maybe just joined us. But I'm curious, is that something that you would recommend for people to do, is to create the kind of products, services, and programs that they themselves are looking for? Like, what's the starting point you feel that you would recommend to somebody who is thinking of creating a product or service? What's the starting point?
I think it's very important to have passion if you're going to invest in creating, and not only just creating and launching and selling, but supporting a community and all these things, that you have passion there, and also understanding. And you don't always have to, if you're going to become a serial entrepreneur, always be scratching your own itch, as they say. But I think, especially first starting out, because you have some self-awareness of yourself, it's good to always gut check your idea. Like, would I buy this? Or does this solve, more importantly, does this solve my problem?
Yeah, that's really cool. I've always created products that solve my own problem first, starting with Telesummit, which I came up with the word in 2004. The word didn't exist. Suddenly, telesummits were everywhere. But the way I started it is because I had 2 small children and I couldn't travel to coaching conferences. And what I realized is there are a lot of people couldn't travel either, whether they had kids or they lived overseas. And so Telesummit, the whole concept of a coaching Telesummit, was born as a result of me being a stay-at-home mom, not being able to travel. And ever since then, I was kind of creating products and programs as a result of my own needs. So I think that that's a great place to start with, and then kind of move forward with something else that you start seeing in the market. Let me ask you this question. So, you know Dan Kennedy?
I do know Dan Kennedy.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dan Kennedy was one of my first, I would say, marketing, consulting kind of experts that I was looking at. And I remember him very clearly saying that if you want your products to be valuable, they need to have a, what is the word? Thump value, right? When you take a product and you drop it on the floor, it makes a thumping sound. So that's what it meant, right? It's like really big, huge, these binders, CD sets, DVD sets. Is that still true? Would people still buy that? These kind of giant home study courses? Is there a market or maybe a phase in somebody's life where people are looking for these kind of huge home study courses?
I think that's a really good observation and question. And I think that's one of the ways that the information marketing or information product or the general coaching, teaching business online is changing. In the early days before digital delivery was really what it is, an ebook doesn't thump, but
no, it doesn't.
a workbook does thump. And you can still translate the online world or the physical world into the online world. Like, something can thump into your inbox. But now the issue that people are having is information overload, overwhelm. Thump is kind of scary these days. People have a lot of commitment hesitation. Like, my attention is so fractured that anything that thumps a lot, it better be worth it. So in these days, what I'm seeing that's having the biggest impact, it's not the packaging or it's not what's in the shopping bag. It is the results. So I mentioned the Eben Pagan course on waking up productive. That course didn't really thump, but what it did do is provided real results in my life that I use to this day about my morning routine and how I approach productivity. And it literally, that video course changed the direction and I continue to work with the concepts I learned in that to improve my daily life and my success as a human being and as an entrepreneur. So what people are hungry for today is results and transformation. So if you can make it thump in that way, I think that's the new thump. The method or the vehicle, like the multimedia home study course package or coaching calls or ebooks or online courses, that's just the messenger. But it's not the message. It's the results that the message delivers that's out today. They're really overloaded with decisions and inputs that it's hard to break through the noise. So it's all about transformation.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I'm watching you talk, Chris, and I just noticed that your background is very simple and mine is very ornate in the background, right? Like I have a lot of books, I have my piano, I have a red couch, which I brought from an old office. And a lot of people, when I first started Simpilcity Circle, what was happening is a lot of people were thinking I was getting rid of all of my possessions. And your background looks more like Simpilcity than mine. And I will say that, no, I have no plans of getting rid of my possessions other than things that I don't need in life or in business. But one thing I wanted to ask you, as a serial entrepreneur, to me, the words serial entrepreneur already creates some sort of a complexity in my brain. Like serial entrepreneur means you have multiple businesses, multiple ideas. You're constantly juggling complexity possibly in your life or in your brain. I don't know. So I'm curious, what does simplicity mean to you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me just give a little bit of context about my background. I'm not, like you mentioned, I'm all about anthropology. That is what I studied in college. I spent a lot of time living with cultures in different parts of the world. I spent half a year living in Nepal, in the Himalaya, and I've done lots of different things all over the world. So when I come to a topic like marketing or business, for me, it comes from a place of deep interest in culture, human beings, and sustainable development, and these kinds of anthropological things. So for example, in my past, I took a semester off of college to hike the Appalachian Trail. That's just with what's in your backpack. When I took that Wake Up Productive course, I was actually living on a glacier in Alaska, and I used to manage a sled dog tour business up there with a couple hundred dogs. You could only get there by helicopter, and I had a team of about 20 people that worked with me to deliver the experience. One of the most well-known or popular tours in the world. But in that whole experience, I lived on a glacier without power for 10 years. This isn't all the time, it's just for the summer, but I slept up there and these kinds of things. For me, I define wealth in terms of experiences, and also I'm a highly creative person. I used to have a lot of sleep problems because my mind would just go and go and go, always creating things that didn't exist. So for me, simplicity is just having the freedom to create great things, work with great people, work with customers that I enjoy being around, doing something that's in alignment with my values and helps support my family and contributes to the greater good in the world. And having it so that it's so much fun that it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
And I don't feel overloaded. And when those creative devils spin up of like, oh, I'm so excited about all these new ideas, that doesn't stress me out. It's actually kind of cool. So simplicity for me is removing things that don't contribute to all those factors.
Awesome. There is a word you said, and that is experiences. And I'm curious. So this is what I have noticed and observed as I've been I've created over 100 products, been working in this online business world. I feel like a dinosaur, especially when I see you with your baseball cap. I feel really old. I was like,
I'm almost 40, so I'm not that. I'm not a spring chicken. Yeah.
No, but it's like all this new generation of guys in baseball caps starting to enter this world of online entrepreneurship, and that is both exciting but also a little scary because I feel like I may be falling behind in some technologies. Like Facebook Live, for me, this is my first big one. And yet I know that it's existed for a while now, and a lot of people have already been using it. So, so the question I had for you is about experiences. Do you feel that people will still buy a course online, even though it doesn't have an in-person experience component? Because when you say experience, for some reason I picture myself in a retreat or in some kind of a trip that a coach has organized and taking us all on the trip. And courses don't have that component of a live experience. What do you mean by experiences? Maybe that's what I should be asking you. And how do you bring that into an online course?
I would say a meaningful experience. In terms of learning, there's really three factors that create a meaningful experience. One of those is the leadership factor, which just means that are you empowering the student to learn and to take control of their own life? Like the Wake Up Productive example, it was a vehicle that gave me the autonomy to take control over my morning and work on my habits and things like that. That's a very empowering experience. But there's also an experience interacting with a teacher or other peers inside the program. Some online courses are just kind of like passive income, make money while you sleep, self-study thing, and that's totally fine. But one of the directions we're heading towards is focusing on the power of social learning and the learning and the experience that happens and great technology mimics what happens in real life. And this is, I'm going to put on the anthropology cultural hat here. If we look in our own lives and look at experiences, learning experiences, if I look in my history, some of my best real life learning experiences, for example, I spent a month in the Canadian wilderness with no trails or roads or anything with a National Outdoor Leadership School program when I was in my early 20s. Going through that experience with other students was very powerful. I learned a lot from the teachers and the content, but just being there with a cohort was helpful. So you can design that online, and I'll get to how to do that in a moment. But the third thing to make a meaningful experience is it's really important to not just deliver ideas, but to help people in ways that map to actual reality. And this is a counterintuitive thing compared to what we sometimes learn from in marketing advice, where, okay, focus on selling the benefit.
Right.
But which works and can create sales. But what's really important is that the course and we're designing and can predictably, as long as the person does the work, deliver the real world result. So that I always double check and make sure if I'm creating a product, I never want to be selling hope or a promised benefit without like being able to dependably and guarantee deliver that result. So those three things to create meaningful experience are leadership, reality-based learning, and then community. Mm-hmm. And those things, that's how, and you can do that online. And I can talk about some strategies to do that. But that's what creating a learning experience is all about. And I would just encourage everybody to think back in your own life to some of your favorite learning experiences. And I bet you'll see some of those pieces at play there.
Yeah, lots of good information here. So I'm curious if you guys, Dory is saying that, Chris, sometimes your delivery is being interrupted. I'm also getting the same thing. A little bit, you freeze on the screen sometimes. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that at the moment. Probably not. So we'll just translate what you're saying if I can catch it. So I'm curious, what is the biggest takeaway so far you guys have heard from this conversation? Anything that is a takeaway or something you're going to do differently, or you're going to try something, please type it under the video and I will show it on the screen if it's something that other people can benefit from it as well. I love what you're saying. So to create a course that people will find useful right now, it needs to have those components of leadership, reality-based learning, which I interpret as it needs to be honest and realistic. As opposed to create a 7-figure business in 6 months, right? And it needs to have a community. Right. I used to actually say that any course, any program needs to have 3 components. So I said that for years. I still believe it, but you put a different spin on it. So I would always say your program needs to have a content, something people learn. It needs to have coaching, and it needs to have community. And somehow we intersected here. Community is still a big part of it. So in the past, the way that I have marketed very successfully, because I could count on the strategy like the sun will rise up tomorrow, and I knew that would work. So I would write an email, send it to my mailing list, and give people a link to a sales letter where people would buy my product. Then later I switched it to, I would send an email, send people to sales letters in a video format, and people would buy my product. Today, it doesn't work as well, I noticed. There's something else that creates sales that makes people buy. So I'm curious, think about answering this question, like how that has changed, what's become more important for people to see, why that email marketing is no longer enough on its own to be a sales generator. While you're thinking, Chris, I want to put a few comments here. So Jane, you've seen me say that before. Content, coaching, and community. Yes, like everything I've ever created, my past company, all my past products had always a component of, so definitely content, because I am a teacher at heart and I always create content. But then I started offering and adding this group coaching component. And then with Facebook group, well, community was an easy add. You just put people in a group and they start creating a community naturally, right? So that's a good one. And then, and May listed your three: leadership, reality-based learning, and community. Thank you, May, for highlighting that so I could put it on the screen, because that's kind of the only way for me to be able to feature that again. Sandra, I apologize if I butchered your name, is wanting to know more about building a community. And that's actually a very cool question that I would like to pose to you in just a little bit. Building a community, one of the things that I loved about my previous company is that by the time people would meet in person at a live event, it felt like a love fest, because people already felt connected and wanting to see each other. It's like, hi, I know you from Facebook. How do you create that, right? Like, as I'm building the Simpilcity entrepreneurship community on Facebook, I would love for people to want to meet each other, to want to hang out with each other, just to meet, so that they could satisfy the craving of being around people in a community. So let's talk about that in just a moment. But before we do, how are sales created differently? Why isn't email marketing enough anymore? And what can we do? Maybe you can combine this with the answer to community question too, right, Chris? I'm throwing it all at you. I know your brain can handle it.
It does combine here. And one of the things I would add is that I'm noticing a shift in the marketplace from tactics to more that learning.
Can you repeat the last thing that you said?
Sorry about that.
We'll do our best with this.
Yeah. So I see it shifting in the marketplace from tactics to what the learning, leadership, and community as the vehicle for sales. And what I mean by that is, in the past with digital products, there's a lot of focus on influence, things like Robert Cialdini's books on influence and the 7 things that make for influence, or, good copywriting for sales and things like that. These are important things, but because people's inboxes are so inundated, because people are on so many email lists, what's really needed for sales these days are just let the results speak for themselves. So if you think back to your real life, the best products, you hear about from a friend, it's not, you didn't have to be influenced to make the decision. I mean, the influence was very natural. It came from the results that you got. So if you fell in love with your iPhone and you started talking about it all the time, and your friends heard that, they're getting pretty interested. You don't have to be write persuasive copy to sell the iPhone, and that's just because it delivers in reality, some really incredible results. So I think that's what it's all about. I don't mean to discredit the fact that when you're first starting out, you do need to kind of tooth and claw for your first customers. You got to be creative and scrappy to get some people in your first version of your course or your products so that people can start experiencing those results. But once you get that initial flywheel or momentum turning, that's what it's all about these days. Yes, it's important to still do solid email marketing, run webinars, do social media, have a social media strategy, but really focus on the results that like, don't just design a product, design a learning experience. And that the results that people get from that experience that you designed as an entrepreneur is the best marketing strategy today, in my opinion.
I love these words. I'm going to write them down. Design a learning experience. And so I think that kind of brings us to talking about creating a course. One of the things that you shared with me, which I'll be frank, overwhelmed me a little bit, is that in order to create a great course, you need to have some sort of expertise. You need to be an instructional designer. You need to be a community builder. You need to be a technologist. That is very overwhelming. How do you get around that today, right? So can you talk about these things and also what it takes to create what did you call it? Design a learning experience, right?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to just surround yourself with other great people and ask for help, because you're likely already an expert. But to be a community builder, somebody who can design or teach or package a course in the digital or real world, that's a whole other skill set. And then you've got to do the whole online business thing. You have to wear all these different hats. So my advice is, I see a lot of people not get help or not ask for help or hire a freelancer and things soon enough. They try to carry it as a startup entrepreneur too long without getting some help. But in the beginning, you do have to be scrappy if you have limited resources to get all those things done. But the important thing there is to know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and focus on the highest leverage things you can do with those pieces. And what I mean by that is instructional design. Some of the highest level things you need to know how to do are design a curriculum. You need those are kind of the highest level things.
Go back to the last thing you said. You froze on the screen. You need, and then we lost you.
Oh, sorry. You need to be able to, as an instructional designer, be able to create a curriculum. So what's the starting point and what are the steps required to achieve the result that you promise? That's a curriculum design, and make it as simple as possible, and know where you start and know where you end. And then the other part of that is just being able to do it in the digital world. So you need to have a baseline comfortability with video, and creating audio lessons or download documents and supporting resources. Those are like the critical pieces of instructional design. There's a lot more you can do, but if you just know those and allow yourself not to be perfect, that's a great place to start. Yeah. So that's a big part of it as well. And I do want to answer something you mentioned before. I've learned a lot recently from a guy named Frank Bria. He has a program, I think it's called High Ticket Programmer, but he's helping people understand how to design really high-end experiences that include online courses. So I just wanted to share, and full credit to Frank on this, what that stack is to create, the most high ticket or high impact would be my preference to call it learning experience. You have online course, you have masterminds, you have coaching, you have what is the other one? Courses, masterminds, group coaching, private coaching, and I think that's about it. But you can stack it together, so you don't necessarily have to think about the online course in isolation. And I saw the question there. Frank Bria's last name is Bria.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing, Chris, is that yes, you can sell a purely digital course online, and to design a real great learning experience, you do need a community, and you do need to really think through to really focus on the result. I mean, what will it take for people to get a result, right? I just finished running a Simpilcity experience event a few weeks ago, and I remember we were all sitting at a table, and people were asking, so what do I include? Do I include this, or do I need a workbook? Do I need a module? Do I need another module? Like, what do I need? Do I need to include a live event or live workshop? And my answers would always lead me to say, well, what makes sense to include for people to experience a result, or what feels like the next right, the right next step for this result to occur. So this is really great. See, there were some questions here. So I'm going to share this question from May. Do you mean marketing should focus on testimonials? Because you were talking a lot about results and how people really want a result. So you need to focus on marketing the result, or the result that you've experienced. And I'm going to read between the lines here from May, is that what if you are new and you don't have results, or you don't have clients that you can have testimonials from? What is your best advice for that?
So my insight there is to, before even creating an online course or this high-ticket program in your mind, I mean, definitely you need to map it out in your mind, but you can do something called piloting, where before you even create the product, you put up a sales page and you do a concierge, like not automated at all, version of delivering your teaching and the result you promise. And you can do that through Skype. You can do that like at in-person meetups or whatever. But you basically do whatever it takes to get your copy written for your sales page of like, this is who I help. This is the starting point of where the people I help are at. This is the result I'm promising through my method, and I'm opening that up to a small group of a pilot group to go through the experience. And you can incentivize that pilot group so that, you know, because it's hard. I mean, it's hard as an entrepreneur to be at the very first step, but you likely are going to be able to sell into, even if it's just 3 people, to go through your pilot program before you even think about like an online website or more automated digital product. Go ahead and deliver that experience in a very high touch way, either in person, online, or a hybrid version. And once you have that, you can build on that. And what I like to say is, publishing your course or your product is not the finish line, it's the starting point. So part of mastery and really being passionate is continuously improving your course or your program or your product as real human with it, so you can continuously improve it. But my biggest tip there on that starting point is to do a pilot, do it high touch, and don't automate anything.
That is a great tip. One of the reasons that I always run my programs live first is so that I could get real live feedback from people. My very first product, which I'm going to show again because it's really funny, this is a CD, and the only thing on it, let's see if you can show it closer, is a PDF file, because I felt that if I put my ebook on a CD, it'll make it more valuable. I can mail it, and then my husband can actually see that I have a real product in my closet and feel like I do have a real business. I do. It's not just my family used to tell me, so you basically just sell air and you make money that way. I'm like, no, look, I got a CD. I have products. So that was really interesting. So the biggest thing that I'm hearing, Chris, is that we have moved away from really working in the isolation, designing our products from whatever is in our head, and including people, like the concept of piloting is very important. I never called it piloting. I usually just come up with an idea for a product that I think will sell. I will promote it even before it exists, and then I co-create it with people, right? The big piece that I have noticed in the last few years is the community. So let's talk about community. As an anthropologist, you must have some interesting insights on what's happening online with Facebook up in the game in groups. That's become like a really important thing that we can talk about today. But you mentioned something about the online cultures and subgroups showing up online, and how that affects all the buying and all the product creation. In my very last company, I had a community. And when I sold it and left last year, I made a decision like, I don't need a community. I'm just going to stay home. I'm going to revert back to being a hermit and create my products in behind computer. I really don't need a community. Literally within 3 months, I started feeling lonely, a little depressed, I'm going to say, like insignificant, like I don't have any value to offer to people. Nobody's giving me feedback, so I really don't know if what I'm creating is any valuable. And so I started craving. And when I started this Facebook group, all of that immediately changed. I think this is why it has grown so fast. As I shared early on, in 3 weeks, we just hit 800 members in the Simpilcity Entrepreneurship community group. And that's because that's how excited I am. It just gave me so much energy to move forward with this message of simplicity and, growing and scaling your business while staying simple. Now I can see that people want that and need that, and that feeds me even more, kind of like lights that fire, under me. And so what can you say? Let's have a conversation about building a community online. We know that it's important for a lot of people, but how does it affect sales, and how do you build a community that you can then, dare I say, monetize, or at least turn people into such great fans that they want to buy all the things that you're creating, all the work that you're passionate about. So let's talk about that.
Awesome. Well, that is one of the biggest way, then and now, how information products or digital products are different. And I just want to say that the video-based online chapterized version of a book that becomes a digital product that somebody consumes in isolation that's not necessarily the answer. It still works. It's just not necessarily super high value as once you start bringing in the community piece. So that's one of the big differences between now and 7 years ago, for example. Mm-hmm. In terms of how someone does it and why it's important, I'd like to say first that there's been a lot of studies of human beings, and there's something called Dunbar's number, which is where human beings can keep up with about 150 people, relationships. And beyond that, it's really hard. And then groups often split, or tribes split into 2 tribes and things like that. But online, you can have much bigger relationships, but you got to know that, like, ultimately though, our biology is designed for, tribal living. What's really interesting in culture and society these days, and these are the kinds of questions I think about on my walks, is that, so much has changed in the last 1,000 years, or even last 100 years, or even the last 20 years of the internet, that our biology, it hasn't changed that much to keep up with it. So we're still designed basically as hunter-gatherers, and we're still getting used to even the agricultural revolution instead of being hunters and gatherers. But what that means in terms of community and learning, and I totally relate with your story about, I've done it where I've built, passive income, digital products, make money while you sleep stuff, but I started feeling really alone. And that's not I mean, passive income, and there's a place for that, don't get me wrong. But to live a meaningful life, and it still needs to have people in it. And we want to feel like in our life's work that we're connecting. Connection is very powerful. And what people often underestimate, and it continues to blow my mind on a daily basis, is that the real power of the internet, in my opinion, is actually connection. That's what it's all about. And you can leverage that for learning and business and things of that nature. But the key insight I'd like to share with everybody today is that it's really easy to get overwhelmed with tactics. Like, okay, I need to build my email list from day one. An email list is in essence a community. I need a Facebook group. I need an Instagram group. I need Snapchat. I need, these websites. I need my own social network. I need forums. You can get lost in tactics is what I'm saying. But my recommendation to people is first thing you have to think about when building a community is think about where your particular people that you want to hang out with and serve hang out, and what tools do they use, and just do the 80-20 analysis on what is the highest impact there. Is it a YouTube channel? Is it an email newsletter? Is it a Facebook group? And don't try to be good at all those things, because you'll end up in overwhelm and your head will explode and your fingers will fall off from typing too much. So yeah.
That's a great visual. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my tip. And also give a lot of value and build community for free. Don't just save it for your customers. Like building community as marketing is a great idea, like a free Facebook group. That's one of the ways we've grown LifterLMS. It's just by creating a place for education entrepreneurs and people who want to get into online courses to hang out on Facebook and connect with each other. And it's great. But then, also building community for your paying customers. And if you just follow it out to the extreme, you can have that, that beach house in Tahiti where 10 people assemble from your online tribe around the world, and you have this intimate mastermind experience, but all levels are valuable. And as you're architecting that learning experience and that journey and how you interact with the world and how you market, always run it through that filter of how am I building or contributing to community.
Yeah, I love that. There are a couple of questions there for you. I'm going to check in with, I see a question from Alice that's really good, actually. I do want to say that as I was listening to you, Chris, I was thinking, yes, it's very easy to get lost in all the tactics because there's so many of them. And everybody says that's the one that's going to help you make more money. And that's the one that you need to try because it's the best. Everybody has the next best tactic to share with you. But as I was listening to you, I really felt that simplicity comes from connection, because then the tactics become either irrelevant or really connected to the purpose of connecting with people. It's connecting with the purpose of connection, right? So tactics by themselves are meaningless and very overwhelming, very time consuming. But when you think about the real power of the internet is connection, then suddenly people are more meaningful to you. And I love that you said that meaningful life still needs to have people in it. Really? We do? Because I thought you could just sit behind the computer and create courses. I mean, that was my experience early on as an introvert, for sure. I enjoyed alone time. In fact, I remember my coach asked me, what must be true for Milana to be in the flow? And I said, I'm embarrassed to answer this question, but really the truth is, I just want to be alone. And he goes, no, this is great, because this means that when you are alone, you are at your best. And if you can honor that and acknowledge that and revere it, that's how you're going to be more successful. But I do need people too. Or I think that introverts need people as well. It's just that they recharge differently, but we need people just as much. Suddenly I'm a representative of all the introverts in the world, but that's kind of how it feels to me, is that online business and this idea of passive income and automation has really been misrepresented in terms of the benefits of it and what it means to a lifestyle. Yes, passive income is incredible, but this one element of people creating more meaning in our lives, and actually it makes it easier to sell when you do have a connection with people, which is why I'm in love with having a Facebook group, because that allows me to have that connection. So I want to ask you, Chris, about the hottest trend in information products today. Before I do that, let me check with our viewers. Pamela says definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add, I'm also, just to give people a really tangible example, when I take the Myers-Briggs personality test, for example, I am an off-the-charts introvert. It may not appear that way in this video and our conversation, but to me, and learning about that you're an introvert as well, it's no surprise that the way we're choosing to use technology is we're having this huge gathering in these, big Facebook group, but we're doing it kind of the entrepreneur or the introverted way. So it's, I just find that interesting. We're just being who we are, and we're leveraging the tools that make sense right now. I may run into you at an event or live event or something like that, but as an introvert, I'm way more likely to run into you like this right now.
Yeah. So do you give people hugs when you meet them for the first time?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends. It depends. If I have a relationship, like if they're someone I've known online for a long while, yeah. If I've never met them before, probably not. Probably not. That would probably be a good idea. I'm a big hugger with people that I've met and connected before, but not everybody is. And so just a note to self. Alice is asking, let me show Alice's question. My question is this: I have a master's in curriculum development and instruction and have written multiple books and so on. But when it comes to creating an online course, I'm having difficulty. Now, Alice is a member of the Simpilcity Circle program, so I know a little bit about Alice. She's extra smart, and I'm wondering if it's almost in the way of her creating a course and kind of like disseminating what kind of information to share. She's like, just the brain, a walking brain, right? There's so much knowledge and experience. So I'm curious what you would say to that. I hear this kind of thing, like what you're talking about, Alice, a lot. Almost like it's a big part of my day, actually, because I work with a lot of smart entrepreneurs who have a lot of passion, a lot of expertise. There's different names for the problem here. Even though you're an instructional designer and have curriculum experience, it is very difficult when you have the cursive knowledge or expertitis, or if you're falling prey to techno babble, like you're using words and that are built on concepts that the person hasn't mastered yet, so it doesn't make sense. Like these are very common issues with teaching, and given the just the short attention span of today and the things competing for attention, it is quite challenging. And I don't want to understate it, that to communicate effectively online in the right amount of time is a challenge, and it really just takes practice. And that's why I think the pilot experience is a great way to do that in the flesh. And if you're going to write something down from this this conversation that I highly recommend just thinking about a lot, it's the concept of feedback loops. When you do a live event, like you said, Milana, when you're first testing out a product idea or whatever, or you're piloting your course, when you do that live, you have a direct feedback loop from your audience. So if something's, you can quickly see if something's not working, not resonating, if people are focusing on the wrong things, or perhaps you're not teaching effectively. When you have that feedback loop open, you can just constantly improve and refine your product as you go, that's what I would say. That would be my advice. If you're feeling stuck, put down the technology and get a pilot out the door, even if it's just one person that you're bringing through your process or your proposed process manually.
Yeah, I'm working with a client right now from Simpilcity Circle program as well. She's developing a program where she needed to test a process. And so she's working with 2 people where she's literally taking them through the process and refining it for free, just to validate that the process works and to see where people get stuck. So that is really important. One of the things I will say, as somebody who created a lot of products, and I do have a teaching background now. I'm used to be a music teacher. So one of the courses I had to take was music pedagogy, which is where they are teaching you how to teach, essentially. And maybe that's kind of part of my background that translates into everything I do. But one of the things that was very important that I started doing very quickly in my business is I would reduce the desired outcome to a single tiny little result that I want to focus on, as opposed to, and in fact, I made a mistake early on creating a course called Coaching Business Mastery. And it was an 8-week program where each week I would tackle a big chunk of a coaching business. Nobody succeeded with that course. And I felt like such a failure as an instructor, as a teacher, as a business owner. And so ever since then, every one of my courses is like, how to do this one little thing, how to accomplish this result, this tiny little thing, because that's what people want, right? Go ahead, Chris.
I just had something I say to people a lot related to what you're talking about. And I talk about 3 different types of courses. There's a resource course, a process course, and a behavior change course.
Ooh.
The resource course is the most dangerous. That's where I'm going to teach you how to be a coaching mastery pro, and my whole catalog of knowledge is going into this massive library resource. There is a place for resource courses, but their odds of success are a lot lower. However, if you're teaching somebody a process, like how to build a website in 10 days, or you're teaching somebody a behavior change, like how to wake up productive, that's manageable. And you have what you're talking about, which is a learning objective. So learn what's inside my library.
What were the other 2? So the resource course, what the other 2?
Learn a process and behavior change.
Got it. What is the behavior change one?
That would be like waking up productive, or like become a morning person, or stop some kind of bad habit, or
like
change,
focus on a transformation. Yeah, and then that gives you a framework to think about curriculum design. That's awesome. I just realized we're almost at the top of the hour. I can't believe that we lasted this long, and I didn't even realize the information is really juicy. Let me ask you this one question, and guys, please, thank you, May. Really, I need to hire you as a note taker, May. She just shared the notes with what you shared, the 3 types of courses that you can create: resources, process, learning, and behavior change, which is awesome. Thank you for that. But I do want to say, what is the biggest, because community and connection is so important, how do you create that? And I'm asking for selfish reasons as well, but for anybody else who understands the importance of building a community through Facebook, in person, however it is, what would you say as an anthropologist, the secret ingredient to creating a community where people feel very connected? What is, especially, if you think about a Facebook group, there are a lot of Facebook groups, but only a few have that little secret ingredient that makes people want to be there and be drawn to them. I have some ideas about that because I've done that before, but I've done that more subconsciously, and I'm curious if you can put that to surface here.
That's a big question, but I'm going to do my best and talk about just how do we define ourselves as a culture, or what does a tribe have? What do all tribes have in common? So there's all kinds of things like there are, for one, the way we talk about things. Like, sorry, one of the things.
We missed it. You froze for a second. What was the first thing you said?
A common language.
Common language. There you go. Okay.
So it's important to talk about things and these cultural items that we have in common. Like, for example, has everybody here read the 4-Hour Work Week? Does everybody here know what coactive coaching is? Does everybody here know what the love languages are? We have a common language that we can use. And so I think it's almost cliche at this point, but when you market to everyone, you market to no one. So take a stand, like be a little bit, not extreme for the sake of being extreme, but make it clear what your mission and your values are. And if we were to use like a framework, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's framework for that all great movies are made from, or whatever. There's this part at the beginning called the call to adventure. So if you're going to be the leader of that tribe and you're going to come back, you're going to, quote, return with the elixir, and you're standing in front of the people and you're calling them on this adventure, on this learning experience, on this journey. Number one, which people are you going to, and what is your message? And if you get that right, tools are the last part. Like, okay, should it be a Facebook group, an email list, or whatever, or a live event, or a meetup? That should happen last. So if I may just give another related insight, I unfortunately see a lot of people get stuck and do things backwards. And what they do is they start with the technology, and then they figure out, like, okay, now I got to create some learning content. And then they're like, now how do I build community? So, but the most successful people I see in my experience do it the opposite way. They build community, and then they figure out their learning content and their curriculum and their product. And then they go wrap it all in the technology pieces and the tools that they need to make it happen. So I guess my advice in terms of actually building community today is to have a message that is really authentic, true, and in alignment with your values. Spend a lot of time thinking about who you want to serve in the world, and, give before you get, like, join groups, or, find where your people are already hanging out, and engage with nothing for sale. And, you can start building community that way. And so, but yeah, it's a slow process though. Like the way tribes are formed, the only way to do it quickly, like if you look at it anthropologically, is if there's an emergency, like a tsunami just came in or whatever. These drastic events cause like people to form tribes. So you can do that. If you do want to try to copy that, like bring it in the digital world, what catastrophic event do you want to draw attention to? Could it be that in 2020, 50% of the US population is going to be diabetic or pre-diabetic? Could it be that something around the education system and student loan situation is reaching some serious alarming points? Could it be something about how people are sleeping with their phones and feeling disconnected from each other, and relationships, like in-person, people are starting to have problems with in-person relationships because they're getting addicted to technology. So that, if you want to do it quickly, you also have to define the problem. in a way that that turns the light bulb on.
So it's not just the common language, it's actually common problem. Right. So I'm making a note of that, because I think that what brings people into a community is a common problem. And then what keeps them, I think, is where you were saying, common language, strong, clear message. And I also added a passionate leader, because I feel like that's how I've done it in the past, because anything I do, I'm very passionate about, or I just don't do it. And people are drawn to that. You can't be wishy-washy with your message or with what you're creating. People need to feel that passion from you. And I wish we could continue this conversation, especially because we still have people here watching. And May is asking, could you speak a little bit more about leadership? Because it sounds like that's something that is of interest. And I will take note of that. And maybe you could even comment a little bit more in the comments, because we are beyond the hour. And I'm no longer a Facebook Live virgin. And neither are you, Chris.
Yeah.
Like this is the first time you are on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for saying yes to this and being my first Facebook Live guest. I'm very excited. I want to ask you one last question, and then we're going to part our ways for today and maybe bring you back again at a later time. What is LifterLMS, and how does it differ from any other learning management system, which is what LMS stands for? What does it do for people as far as people who want to create and sell courses online?
So LifterLMS is a WordPress plugin. So if you have a WordPress website, it makes it possible to create, sell, and protect engaging online courses. And there's a lot of ways that Lifter is different from the other solutions on the marketplace, but I would say the biggest one has to do with what we're talking about today, in terms of when we make decisions of what the product is capable of, and some of the social learning features and the coaching features that we're adding into Lifter to really focus on relationships and community. It's that guiding vision that makes us different, because this conversation here is about information products then and now. And what happened in the past was more about making money online, monetizing this or that. And what's happening now is we're moving more to a results-focused. The market and the industry is maturing. We're moving towards creating meaningful learning experiences, and it's that just kind of awareness that goes into the development of the product and the community behind it that make it different. And I think over time you're going to see a lot of interesting things come from it. But I want to thank you, Milana, for having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate being a guest in your community here. And and thanks for the great questions. And I feel like we have a lot in common. And
even though you wear a baseball cap?
Yeah. So, as a fellow introvert and passionate, creative entrepreneur, it's great to be here with you and a similar group of like-minded people who really value simplicity. So
thank you so much, Chris. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to wrap it up and thank the technology gods for cooperating with us today 90% of the time. And I'm giving you all Simpilcity entrepreneurs a big mwah. And thank you so much for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again. I'm going to have some more interesting guests. And Chris Badgett was our amazing anthropology serial entrepreneur, course building genius, who is just really reframing for me personally how to look at online marketing today. I would love for you to, I love Alice's comment, great value, almost, transformational value from Alice comment. If there's anything else that you would like to ask Chris or myself on this topic, simply post it below the video that is going to be generated from this Facebook Live, and have an awesome rest of the week. We are on Thursday, so almost weekend. Thank you so much, Chris. Enjoy your two beautiful girls and your family, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.